Good day, everyone, and welcome to today's DevOps.com webinar. We're excited that you've joined us. Our topic is very applicable. I'm sure everyone can use some of this great information. The topic is staying connected through Teams, collaboration from a distance with xMatters. Welcome to the webinar. It's sponsored by xMatters, of course. My name is Mitch Ashley, and I'll serve as your host and moderator. A few housekeeping items. We are recording the webinar, and everyone attending will receive an email with a link to the recording as well as the slides. So sit back, relax. You don't have to take a lot of notes, maybe jot a few things down, but we've got some great content and great speakers. I think you'll enjoy it very much. Also, at the end of our webinar, we're giving away 4 gift cards, Amazon gift cards, for $25 each. So stick around and find out if you're a winner. Last but not least, I know both of our speakers love to have questions. They love to interact with the audience and would appreciate any questions that you have. So please enter those at any time during the presentation and the demonstration in the GoToWebinar control panel, and we'll get to those as soon as we can. Now let's move on to our topic, staying connected through Teams, collaboration from a distance with xMatters. It's my great pleasure to introduce our 2 speakers today. First is Erin Bailie, who's Program Manager with Microsoft Teams, and Travis DePuy, who is Head Product Evangelist with xMatters. Travis, I'm going to turn it over to you. Take it away.
Great. Thanks, Mitch. So as mentioned, I'm Travis DePuy, Head Product Evangelist at xMatters, and presenting with my partners.
Hi, Erin Bailie, Partnerships Program Manager at Microsoft. And we're excited to talk to you today about DevOps in a remote world. Travis and I have been talking with our customers to understand the problems and the challenges that people are encountering with the digital transformation of 2020. We will share some of our findings, both the problems and the answers, and impactful solutions that we've been able to deliver to customers. We'll also show you the xMatters app for Teams. It brings a solution for incident management and incident response into a highly collaborative environment. Let's get into it. In today's software world, there are many phases of a DevOps cycle. The faster this life cycle moves, the faster your team can innovate, which means that interruptions or slowdowns to the cycle can have impacts for your entire development organization. At any time, you could be planning new software sprints and builds, writing, approving, and merging code, releasing versions to your staging and production environments, and monitoring and responding to incidents when, not if, they occur. And this wheel, this engine, is constantly turning. Sometimes it feels like you're doing all of these things at the very same time. Each phase of this cycle is important, and it can have dependent steps within it. Let's look at releasing software builds. It requires building versions, running automated and manual tests, and deploying them through various environments. An interruption to any one of these steps could slow down the release process, which could slow down your DevOps engine as a whole. Because this cycle directly impacts your organization and your ability to serve your customers' needs, we want to tell you how to keep this engine running smoothly by developing processes and practices that will help you with outcomes like feature velocity and incident resolution time.
So we're going to frame this in the context of the problem of staying connected, right? Staying connected in general can be difficult for any team or organization that spans more than one room. But these days of so much remote work, there are many different factors that contribute to this problem. So things like geography, which of course is related to the time zone, but also work schedules. A lot of parents, of course, are doing split shifts, maybe to support their kids learning at home. Or, for example, I work early. I will start my day a little bit early so that I can get a workout at the end of the day to help with the work-life balance. But also tool sets, can really contribute to not being able to stay connected. So you have different complications that can really slow down this, the digital services rollout. So we actually did a survey of 300 consumers recently. They found that half of the respondents experienced some kind of increase in digital service problems while working from home. Further, we did another survey of IT professionals at large enterprises and found that more than 50% of their time is spent reacting to incidents. And really, this is unsustainable. If an organization can't deliver the features it needs to support the business, then consumers are going to find some other options. So, Erin, what's the solution to staying connected?
Yeah, the best solution is communication. When teams and people have access to the information that they need at the time that they need it, they can unblock their work and they can maintain this release velocity. By ensuring that your communication is shared across departments, both within your organization and with external stakeholders, and that it's applicable for the tools and the systems that people actually use, you can help your organization adapt to changing environments, like moving to a fully remote workforce, and maintain strong outcomes for your customers.
Sorry.
Teams is a rich platform, and it's got a ton of features and capabilities. It supports chat, calling, meetings, and there's over 700 third-party apps in the Teams store to help you with your business process workflows. I want to distill 4 key workflows that can be done in Teams to help you and your team with communication and collaboration. First is that Teams facilitates collaboration. We've got chat, calling, and meetings, and all which together create a collaborative environment. Teams can be used with members of your organizations, and you can also invite external parties. No matter which stakeholders you interact with daily, whether they're customers, strategic partners, or other colleagues, Teams allows you to work with them in a collaborative environment. Second, you can use Teams to initiate workflows and processes using applications and integrations. While you're collaborating with your colleagues, you can start a run of your build pipeline or create a ticket for your sprint, trigger an incident, or more. Third, Teams facilitates capturing and sharing information, which can be transmitted to other systems via integrations. You can use Teams to create files and documents, manage the permissions, and then you can also use applications to collect and capture data from your contributors. Lastly, Teams lets you notify users through targeted notifications and messaging mentions, so you can keep members of a channel or an entire group up to date through apps or messages and conversations. Now, 2020 has brought a digital transformation of remote work. Oh, apologies. Go ahead, Travis.
So piggybacking off the notification aspects, xMatters is a tool. We can help track down the right people at the right time and provide some context to the signals that are generated by the sorted applications. And then we also allow you to kick off workflows in the process, which we'll get into a little bit in a minute. But all of these tools can help you work with your collaboration. But it's not without its challenges. There are some issues to be aware of.
Yeah. 2020 has brought a digital transformation to remote work, and Travis and I have been speaking with our customers about some of the challenges they've encountered with that. We've categorized them into a couple of key trends or key themes that we want to share with you. The first is that people make mistakes. Old or inaccurate documentation, or a lack of permissions to view files or edit tasks, and sometimes even just personal opinion, can lead to inconsistent execution of tasks or processes. Second, different teams use different tools. In a recent survey, 38% of respondents said that using more tools for their job makes things more, not less difficult. Overlapping tools or grassroots efforts to adopt a new tool can lead to inconsistencies. Third, information can end up siloed within a single place, whether it's access to files, permissions in systems, or even just visibility into the status of a DevOps lifecycle. A lack of transparency can really bring innovation to a halt. And lastly, people tend to over-communicate in digital formats. In a world where email and chat conversations are replacing desk-side chats or conference bridge rooms, there's a tendency to share all information into a single channel, share everything that comes to mind. This makes it hard for participants to catch up and stay up to date in ongoing incidents. And it slows down contribution because there's a lag while people are typing out their answers instead of just speaking verbally. The impact is that it takes longer to resolve incidents and visibility for stakeholders can suffer. But overcoming these challenges is possible. To resolve human error, you can replace human tasks with automation. Prevent errors or discrepancies by ensuring systems respond with consistency. To overcome disparate tools, integrate tools to ensure information is flowing from one to the other and is available in the places where people need it. For information silos, use shared communication environments to ensure that departments, teams, and external stakeholders are all up to sync. And for over-communication, use targeted communication channels to make it easy for others to stay up to speed. When possible, move real-time communications to the least laggy environment, like a video call or a conference call.
Great. So kind of with that groundwork, we're going to show an example process that we've developed using the assorted tools that we talked about, and then how to address these issues. So what we're looking at here is a Datadog. So if you have a monitoring application, your favorite monitoring application, then it sends out alerts. So this is where we talked about over communicating can be a problem. And really, if you're notifying to a distribution list, you're really over communicating. That can really just count more into the noise and really not help the solution. So using an application like xMatters, we can work on tracking down the right resources at the particular time that they're needed, and then deliver information about this particular signal. So here we have the mobile notification with the signal from Datadog showing that there's currently some high latency in the dog palace. This is, of course, our doggy daycare facility that has their own DevOps team to make sure that the doggies are properly monitored. And of course, using Datadog, to monitor the APIs that they have. But the notification is not the end of the story. Once you get the notification, there's a lot of work that you have to do, afterward. So things like enriching the notification with additional information. I'm just showing an example here of GitHub and CircleCI enriched information showing the original commit and then build information that may have contributed to this particular issue. So maybe we had an issue that recently was deployed, and a build that was recently deployed, and then the issue occurred. So let me just check out show how this is set up in xMatters. This is our Flow Designer canvas, and it allows you to build a nice workflow of information, flowing of information. So we see the original inbound request from Datadog. We're going to go ahead and enrich it from a little more details from Datadog, and then pull some more information from GitHub and CircleCI. Finally, we'll post a message into Teams, to get a wider audience involved in it if needed, and then identify the on-call resources and deliver that information to them. So now that I have this original signal, as well as the enriched context information, I can then make a decision on what to do next, right? As I mentioned, the notification is not the end of your issue. So using the xMatters mobile app or email or SMS, of course, all of the devices, I've got a handful of different response options. So I've got the couple of, on-call lifecycle, maybe mute the monitor or escalate to the next person. But the really interesting things happen, with these other ones. So maybe I need to roll back the last issue, the last deployment. But in this case, this is actually, a pretty serious issue. We're having some really high latency on our API. So I'm going to declare this at 1. So one of the things we talked about was automation, and humans being prone to error. So when you have a major incident or something that's really critical to your services, you need to make sure that you do the same thing every time. So setting up a different flow, in this case for the responses, allows me to define what happens when I select the declare sub1 response option. In this case, I'm going to go ahead and create a Jira issue. I'll create an xMatters incident, which I'll show you in just a minute. We'll add a comment and a link into the Jira ticket with a link to the xMatters incident. So we have a mirroring of information. Going back to breaking down those silos of information. Maybe you have teams that are more heavily used in Jira than they are in other tools. So they want to have kind of a mirroring of that information. Same thing, maybe. Sorry, Erin, but there are some other teams that might use Slack out there. And so maybe your customer service or customer support department uses Slack. So let's just post a message into them so that they're aware. But then we're going to create a Teams channel to then start the actual collaboration and troubleshooting process, which we'll get to in a minute. And then finally, I'm just going to generate another notification, maybe to a stakeholders, to let them know, hey, we've got a major incident in process. Here's the relevant details of the original signal, as well as links to all the assorted incidents. So jumping over to the clearly, of course, inferior application, I've got a link into the customer support. So maybe as a customer support representative, I can say, okay, well, man, that's not good. Let's go check that out and see what that's like. So in this case, I've set it up to bring me to the xMatters incident, which shows me some of the details of the original the original issue from Datadog, as well as, again, a link to the Jira ticket that we did open. But since we're talking more about the collaboration aspects, we're going to jump over to the teams. This is a nice little incident preview, console that we could talk about. So there's different aspects that you can do in here, in terms of tracking the timeline and everything. But let's jump over to teams, so we can get into the channel that we just created. Hopefully refresh this again. Go. Cool. So in the Teams channel, we've got links. So we've got links all over the place so that anybody who's in any kind of capacity can then go to the appropriate place to get the master piece of information. As Erin mentioned, apps within Teams is really a critical piece to their to the ecosystem. So we've created actually a bot for Teams. So again, say, okay, maybe maybe I'm pretty sure that this is a database issue, or I've done some investigation that it's actually a database. So let's invite the database team. The xMatters bot goes and retrieves who's currently on call. And so then I say, oh yeah, we definitely need to get these guys in here. So let's invite them on. So once I hit that invite button, again, we're going to work through the on-call schedules. Again, keeping to the let's notify target people the information that they need to know, so that they can then be invited. The current on-call resource can be invited to this this particular channel. In this case, we've got 3 different people on call, so they're all going to get notified. So then maybe I can't speak and type at the same time. So at this point, then we can go back and forth. We can also generate a Teams meeting if if we really need to get more face-to-face communication, or if a lot of times you maybe have executives that need to jump in and listen in on maybe what's happening to get their take on it. All right, cool. So we got Daniel Topham in there. He's going to help out. So after some chatting and back and forth, we've decided, all right, great. We've got this sorted. So then back in xMatters, you can say, all right, we've resolved the ticket. So we'll go ahead and set this to resolved. Maybe we added some indexes which decrease the latency in the API. And the incident then has a handful of details that we can start to go through to gather some metrics on how our incident teams are doing. So I think so let's see, wrapping up. So the problem of staying connected really can be solved with communication, but the critical things to remember are that humans, of course, are prone to error. So we can resolve that issue with automation. A lot of organizations, especially larger enterprise teams, can have a lot of different tools in the organization. So integrating those tools across with each other and providing the appropriate communication channels, and then providing breaking down those silos of information to allow communication across departments. And then again, if you're using distribution lists to send out alerts, really please stop doing that. Everybody will thank you. There's a lot of tools out there for for alerting, tracking down the right on-call resource, and delivering that information to the person who's actually responsible at that moment for resolving it. Cool. And check out xMatters. We are free for 10 users for the smaller organizations. So if you liked anything you see here, then check us out. Also, Microsoft Teams has some great apps that are coming out to their meetings. Erin, are they called? They are called apps, right? Meeting apps.
Yep, meeting apps.
Yep. There's some really cool stuff that's happening there. So, I've also included some sources in this slide deck, which we'll hand out at the end. But that's our talk. I hope that was helpful to everybody. And I think, Mitch, we're about ready for questions.
All righty. Well, let's see what we can do for a few questions for you here. And we do appreciate the audience. We have some time for some more questions, so be sure to enter those in to the GoToWebinar software. So the first question, is it better to use a combination of Team and xMatters instead of doing notifications via email and text messages? Or why is it better, I guess is the question.
Yeah, so I think, again, I guess kind of going to the, targeted communications, it's really easy to light up everybody, a person's devices across, if you can send SMS and email and a push notification and a voice call, you're not really solving the communications problem, you're kind of adding to the headaches. So having some kind of device escalation path can be really helpful. So you start with, so a person can define which device that they really want to be notified on. So maybe, I think push notifications, of course, are really, prevalent, but they are really useful because they will get your attention, especially 2 o'clock in the morning, you're like, oh, yeah. But an SMS, may not actually wake you up at 2 o'clock in the morning. And certainly email, of course, I have a lot of rules in my inbox, and emails don't always get to me when they need to. So yeah, so having a variety of devices, but then again, being careful about over communicating to those devices is really critical.
Good, Erin, anything you want to add to that?
I think Travis captured it.
Okay, excellent. The next question, and I'll try to let you know who asked some of these questions. Russell is asking about this. There's a lot of advancements and announcements that have been made in Microsoft Power Automate. How is xMatters different, better, or differentiated that makes it a compelling option as opposed to staying within the Microsoft family of products?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of tools that kind of do those, the let's see, integrations as a service kind of functionality. xMatters adds the on-call scheduling and then the notifications. So anytime you actually need to reach out to people, that's where xMatters can come in. Certainly, we can set up, a flow within xMatters to trigger a workflow in, what was it, Microsoft Power Automator, was it? Yeah, and it really depends on, what your process is for your particular organization. So if you guys use that heavily, then I would say go for it. Wherever your process has been defined, and then just think about how that's going to get triggered. So, so if like maybe a rollback scenario, do you want to trigger it from xMatters and then have it go talk to, all the different pieces, and where is that communication happening? Whatever your organization uses, I really, definitely use what that uses. And then, but just make sure that you're setting up, these nice workflows to facilitate the next steps after the notification. A lot of tools will send you the notification. You're like, sweet, I got it. Now I got all this crap I have to do. So I guess I didn't actually mention it, but that's toil work. So that's all work that has to be done. That's important to the troubleshooting and incident resolution process, but is taking away from that troubleshooting time. So yeah.
And I'll also add the flow designer, which was the setup that Travis was demoing, where you can set up a logical events in sequence whenever a specific automation is triggered, is really advantageous for xMatters. For example, within that flow, when a severity 1 incident was declared, you'll notice that a JIRA ticket was created, and then a comment was posted in that JIRA ticket with the xMatters incident link. And it's very easy to set this up via the UI. Yes, thank you for showing. Very easy to set this up via the UI. All of these parameters from one system into another are very easy to link via the xMatters Flow Designer. So it can just be much more user-friendly to set up using the Flow Designer compared to some of the configurations for Power Automate.
Good, thank you too, Erin. If I can just chime in, tell me if this is correct. I've often made the decision of we're going to standardize on a certain tool, whatever product that might be, Microsoft or xMatters or others. And then something called M&A comes along and we get this other company and they're using something else, right? So it's almost impossible to stay with one standard. So it seems like that's a potential real advantage of where xMatters can work with Teams and with Slack and the plethora of tools that whether you standardize today, you probably won't be tomorrow. Does that make any sense? Kind of work with your experience, Travis?
Yeah, certainly. Tools like xMatters Flow Designer allows you to easily add in those extra steps. So, if we just added in, this department that, is using Slack, then it's like, okay, let's drop that step in there and make sure that they get that information. Cool, done, ready to go. Yeah, so they're a part of the loop without having to feel like outsiders.
Yeah, it looks really slick how it works too. Thanks for demoing that part for us. Next question is from Jeremy. It's a little lengthy, and I can't profess to understand all of this because I don't know all the products necessarily, but I know a few of them. Jeremy's question is, I'm working through the xMatters GitHub Microsoft Teams integration. We're looking to use MS Teams as a bridge option from Engage. I noticed that the integration uses Azure Active Directory, Graph API, which is approaching end of life. Are there steps available for using Microsoft Graph instead? Boy,
Yeah.
you're really getting the help desk question today here now.
Yeah, actually, I need to update the terminology on that GitHub page, but the new team steps do use the new APIs. They are Graph APIs. So the Graph APIs are the new APIs.
Yeah, so we're using the most up-to-date Graph APIs for the xMatters integration into Teams.
Yeah, these steps here, the ones on GitHub may not be. So that's a good reminder for me to go do that. Jeremy, maybe I'll reach out offline and see if I can get some more information from you. So yeah, look for an email from me, from Travis.
Great, I'm sure he'd appreciate any help that might be appropriate. Another question is the Teams content, where you were integrating, or you're popping over into Teams back and forth with xMatters, is when you're managing an incident, is that retained as part of xMatters for later reference, or how does that information useful later once the incident is closed? You may need to be able to refer back to
it. Sorry, say it again.
The question was just as you collaborate between xMatters and Team, and you have the dialogue that's happening within Team, is that still referenceable after you've gone through the process and maybe this incident is closed and you're doing something else, that you can still refer back to that content that's in another tool?
Sure. Yeah. Actually, we've talked a lot with customers about pulling the Scribe information. So adding a little tag in front of your note saying that's a Scribe, and then parsing through the chat history to pull out that Scribe details. And then maybe pre-generating a document, SharePoint document or something, to say, to build out that post-incident report, including those. The xMatters incident itself actually has a couple of places where we can add in a timeline. And let's see. Yeah, I don't think I have it enabled here, but the post-incident report allows you to build out this whole timeline. We're having a lot of new functionality into this particular timeline to be able to add in particular notes, so Scribe Notes. And again, just depending on where your incident reports are going to be. We have a great tool in xMatters, but not everybody uses that. But yeah, we've definitely had people pull those chat details out and then put them someplace. I would definitely recommend some kind of tag, or only pulling the Scribe Notes, because there can just be a lot of banter back and forth, or just unnecessary information that is just going to clutter up your reports. So having some kind of Scribe piece is really critical.
Mm-hmm. Great, excellent. Vlad is asking about ChatOps. Can you talk a little bit about that concept and how xMatters fits into that approach?
Yeah, Erin, do you want to take this?
Yeah, so I think with the demo that Travis showed, is we have the xMatters automation creating a channel within Teams, which becomes a chat context where everyone can be a collaborator and be a contributor. The advantage of channels in Teams is that it's not just the chat context. You can also share files. You can also initiate a video or an audio call from that context. And you can also integrate other applications. So say, for example, someone wants to pull up a GitHub PR which merged, which possibly caused the issue, they can link that into that chat context as well, all within the same context. So the xMatters integration in Teams, by using this dynamic channel creation and creating a single context where everyone can collaborate about that incident, is initiating your ChatOps so that you can have a single place.
We're also more on the operations side of ChatOps. I think a lot of people use might, yeah, like you did, talk about, the development side of ChatOps, which certainly has a lot of place in, in Teams and elsewhere. But, really just being able to kick off, invite people into a channel. So using the xMatters bot, or, figuring out who's on call, reaching out to people, from that perspective. We can, eventually we'll be able to kick off workflows. So parsing, triggering, let's see, one of these workflows, from Teams to be able to reach into xMatters and then kick off whatever workflow you need to set up from there. Yep.
Very good. Vlad is also asking about Slack bot functionality, sort of the equivalent or something like that. I assume he's asking about Team, but I'm not sure. But Erin, is that one for you, or does that fit better for Travis?
Yeah, I'll take that one. We actually have a lot of improvements to the Slack bot. Really cool UI to be able to initiate these incidents. Let's see, I briefly showed this guy, but being able to kick off a whole new incident from the Slack bot. I don't have it available yet. It's still in last stages of development. So, and then also concurrently, the Slack bot allows you to invite, and then the slash commands in Slack are pretty easy to set up to trigger those workflows as well.
And I think Vlad was asking. Vlad was asking something like the Slack bot functionality, if any. The xMatters bot does have several commands that you can send it as well. So we showed the channel creation capabilities, but then when Travis did the @invite command to see who is on call, there's several other commands that you can do with the xMatters bot. And soon we're really excited about the meeting extensibility launch. It's slated for the 16th of this month, where the xMatters app will also be able to be brought into into meetings, which even adds more collaboration capability to the app as it is in Teams. Yeah,
that'd be great. And then you have a little incident dashboard in your meeting, in your Teams meeting, again to give that insight, surfacing more information, right, so that people can do the things they need to do.
Good. Abbas is asking how you might compare xMatters to Slack or Skype. How would you sort of position each one of those tools and similar or different capabilities?
Yeah, I think they're slightly different. So I guess we can reach out to people in terms of notification, but xMatters, holding the on-call scheduling piece, and then also being able to notify on SMS, voice, as well as push notifications, is all really important information or important features, I guess. Slack does have some limited workflow as well, but we have a pretty full-featured UI for being able to build out the workflows that your teams need across any of the tools that we have available currently. This list is always expanding. So yeah, I hope that helps.
Okay, good. Next question is just about authorization and authentication for xMatters. Do you tie into an LDAP directory for role-based access control, or for any cloud providers? Do you tie into any external authentication or role-based control mechanisms?
Yeah, we support SAML and single sign-on. Role-based authenticated cloud providers, that would be interesting. So I guess that's asking about being able to, like, in Azure or Google Cloud, leveraging the roles that are there in xMatters. We have our own role-based authentication, so role-based authorization, to allow people certain access that they shouldn't have. Everything from actually there's several customers that we have that disallow the UI access to most of their users. So they have administrators that set up these kind of workflows, but the bulk of their users just receive the notifications, like we saw. Yeah, and then all the way up to group supervisors who set up the on-call scheduling, and then developers and administrator types. So we have our own, I guess it's our own role-based authorization.
Mm-hmm. All right. Ritu is asking about any insights you could share about orchestrating incidents, what some of the capabilities or scenarios might be.
Interesting. Incident orchestration.
It's a lot of the workflow what you're doing there, right?
Yeah. I mean, I was kind of thinking about that. Yeah, we have, you know, I mean, kind of like we have the Slack, you know, and Teams. You know, there's a lot of organizations that have, you know, several different ITSM solutions, or you know, or their customer service department might have, you know, ServiceNow, for example, whereas the development teams will use Jira. Actually, here at xMatters, our customer support teams use Zendesk, and then they will escalate tickets to engineering using Jira. So actually, our xMatters operations teams have a pretty extensive workflow, you know, to be able to keep everybody informed about, you know, across the different tool sets.
Good. Just kudos from Elaine. Appreciated the presentation today. I think we've hit most of the questions. I'm curious the kind of size and types of organizations that are most adept at adopting xMatters with teams. Is there any kind of better for smaller, better for larger? Are there some benefits that for both? How does that work?
Erin, do you want to comment on that, or I can?
Yeah, I think xMatters is built for any type of customer. You can think about for a small customer, you know, you've got the up to 10 user free license model, which allows you to try it out and pilot it, make sure that it's right for you before you're investing in a license fee, all the way up to very large organizations and very large enterprises. So xMatters is built for all range of customers. I think often the thing that as you grow larger, it becomes harder to adopt because you have many disparate tools or many different processes, but that becomes an organizational problem. As long as you get alignment on what the process and what the operational model is, then you've got the tool that can support you in implementing and executing that.
Yeah, just to echo that, I mean, you know, being able to even tools like Power Automate, right, to be able to reach out into all these other tools and build out, you know, or have an ecosystem of tools to then pass information across the ones that, you know, need to have it, I think is important in any organization. And then, you know, Mitch, as you said, you know, mergers and acquisitions, you know, come in and, you know, wreck your process. But having a nice tool, having your workflows built out in tools with ecosystems, you know, really helps absorb some of those issues because you can swap in tools in and out as you grow.
You know, something that often isn't stated as broadly is just that consistency of the process. You know, one of the benefits of process is if you follow it, but when you have the automation, now you know that the process, the flow, the workflow is handled the same way every time the exceptions are handled a certain way. That in and of itself gives everybody a level of confidence and knowledge of what's going on versus every time you step into a situation you're not quite sure. I would imagine that's something that customers experience using xMatters and Teams.
Yeah, we talked about the, you know, humans are prone to error, you know, so inconsistencies, you know, and then just the drudgery of having to copy and paste or, you know, type in, you know, hey, the API is too high, and when if you're physically typing in that error message from Datadog, you know, try to think about a different way to do that. You know, there's tools, you know, computers are really good at passing information from, you know, from each other. So, or from application to application. So let's you know, use the tools as they're designed, and leave the higher order, you know, operations to humans to actually work through the issue, troubleshoot the issue.
Mm-hmm.
AI is great, but it's not, you know, it's not there yet, right? You know, it's not going to fix all of our problems.
You know, it's to your point earlier too, Erin. It's also conserved in a positive way as a forcing function to say, what is our process, right? Let's get on the same page about that. And, you know, so it works for everybody and meets the needs, but sometimes it just doesn't happen without implementing these kinds of tools.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, good. Another question we have is there an on-prem installation option?
So as we are a cloud provider, which allows us to negotiate the contracts between the voice callers, the SMS, and then of course the email. We do have customers across the globe, so we do have short codes in a handful of countries. I think it's over 120 countries. So we abstract all of that away from you, which is really complicated and messy. So so that's the advantage, I think, of having a cloud provider for this kind of tool. We do have an agent that we can deploy behind the firewall. So any of these steps that you see they have what's called an endpoint associated with them. So then this is let's go to Jira. So this is the URL, but I can execute any of these steps on the agent, and then this URL can be a local behind the firewall URL. So I could talk to Jira server, for example, without having to open up the holes in the firewall, which people seem to be frowned about recently. The agent makes an outbound WebSocket connection to xMatters, so very secure. We have a lot of healthcare and bank customers that are very satisfied with that. So hopefully that'll answer your question there.
Good. Just a question I have, if you could share any insights on, we've all gone through different kinds or levels of lockdown and all that type of thing in the last 6 to 9 months. And, the UK, I think on Thursday is headed into another, 30 days or so of some form of that. There's different predictions of what the winter will look like. And we hope that it's not, anything too bad. Are there any lessons that you've learned through the last, 9 months or so you think could be really helpful to folks who may be faced with that, of extending their work from home, or maybe putting folks back into a full-time work from home period? But what are some of the things you'd recommend, benefits, lessons, good practices you might have picked up along the way?
Yeah, I can jump in there. There's so much findings that shows the more incidents you have eating up all of your time and your capacity, the less time you have to build new features, to innovate, and to even harden your system against those incidents in the first place. And it becomes this really wildly swinging pendulum of the more incidents you have, the more prone you are to incidents as well. So doing the proactive work, even if it means maybe setting aside feature development for a sprint or a cycle, doing the proactive work to make sure that you have your incident response buttoned up, that everyone's clear, that people have practice and examples that they can reference, can really be beneficial in a 2 or 3 or 6 month time frame, so that you don't notice your quarterly goals or your annual goals slipping away from you as you respond to more incidents. So that's the first recommendation, is really be proactive about getting that incident response and the incident processes buttoned up. It'll really benefit you in the long run. The other recommendation is to hop into a live collaboration environment as soon as you can. The more time that you spend even just typing out a response and reading other people's responses, I'm sure you've seen this in a fast-moving situation. If 3 people all say the same thing at the same time, and when you're in a live collaboration environment, one person speaks and the other 2 people don't waste the time thinking or typing that same thing. So just hopping into a live collaboration as soon as you can really helps reduce that mean time to response, and really allows you to have more time for proactive work and for hardening against those incidents.
Exactly. I would just chime in with the people side. We have a CEO at xMatters that is just really great and really sensitive to making sure that people are okay. So he's done a lot of communication in terms of take care of yourself. So I think if anything, one of the big takeaways I've had from that is just really make sure that you have delineation of work and home. I've been working from home for most of a decade, and so this is a little bit normal, but I was also traveling on the road for 3 weeks. So now being home day in and day out is almost taxing. But I really have to be careful about, okay, this is when I'm done working, and this is my time. This is my time to not spend on work. And having that routine and those boundaries are important.
Mm-hmm.
I'll jump in there. I'm seeing a trend with a lot of software, like the Slack and Teams phone applications, as well as Outlook and Gmail phone applications, of a concept of quiet hours or do not disturb. Really take advantage of those. Put that time on your calendar so your colleagues know that you are offline. Don't give into the temptation of the phone apps. Really let yourself have that unplugged time, because it allows you to bring yourself 100% when you are back on call.
Mm-hmm. That's great. It's interesting. My firm's done some research in this area, and about an equal number of people said managing distractions was easier, and as well as said it was harder during this period. In some way, you've got better tools to do it, but you've got new distractions too, like kids and school and delivery people. showing up at the front door and you're in the middle of a conversation. So it's interesting times. So sometimes even tools like we're talking about are great venues for sharing those learnings, you know, actively as you're doing it. So good stuff. What it seems to me, your timing of the technologies and products that you have are super helpful for folks. And there's a big press on automation right now with all the digital transformation work. So kudos to you. Timing's everything, right?
Yep.
Well, good. I think we've hit our questions, and we'll be able to let folks go a few minutes early. So if it's okay with you, Travis and Erin, I'll go ahead and wrap up. We good to go?
Yep.
Okay, good. Well, certainly thank you both. Fantastic presentation talks, and of course the demonstration. Appreciate that very much. We want to announce our winners, and let's see, Jade, I don't see if I have any winners yet for our gift cards. If we aren't able to get those out here, we'll make sure we get a hold of folks ahead of time. So just a reminder, we are sending out an email with links to the recording and also to the slides. So be sure and share it with others that you're working with that might be able to benefit from the technologies and approaches we've been talking about today. We will reach out to our winners separately and let you know who's received the gift card. So on behalf of xMatters and Erin and Travis, myself, thank you for joining us today. You know, we really appreciate you spending this time with us. Your time's really valuable, and we know you have a lot of options of where you could be spending that time. So we're honored that you've done that with us. So be safe, be well, and have a great rest of your day. Bye-bye.
Thanks.